Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you're listening to
Girls Nerd Out. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's me, Amanda, and my best friend Andrea.
Hey.
And we're super excited to talk to you about a new series. We're watching Dune Prophecy. It's really good. And the first episode was called The Hidden Hand.
Which also meant something for this episode because, I'm assuming the hidden hand was the ending that was hidden.
I think you're right. And I think it has like a secondary meaning because the Bene Gesserit, they do hand signals to each other.
That could be too. Yes.
So we were a bit overwhelmed at first when we decided to go into the land of Dune. But I'll tell you this, Dune Prophecy, I really liked the episode and I didn't feel like I needed to know a ton of stuff going into it, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, I saw some people say that if you didn't watch the movies, you wouldn't understand this, but I don't know if I agree because just by watching the first movie, you could probably handle the show. But even still, I think it's a very enjoyable show regardless.
I agree. I think it's like House of the Dragon. If you know Game of Thrones, you get an extra layer of knowledge and you notice other things, but you can watch it independently. I think it's like that. It's very well acted and well written, but then obviously if you know like history and stuff, then you probably get more of the story out of it. But visually, I thought it looked really, really nice. And it starts off like right out the gate. We get a very, very cool image that I got excited about. Um, I like robots. What did you think? Were you surprised?
I was surprised, and I was surprised at how well it looked, the robots, and then the eyes. I loved their eyes, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, we'll just call that eyes. So, this is something I did look up. Okay, so this story, Dune Prophecy, is 10,000 years before the first Dune movie or book. 100 years before Dune Prophecy, they had a robot, what would you call it? Takeover, sort of?
Something
Like
like that.
like a robot rebellion. But here's the thing, they didn't go after the people, and that's usually the story that we get is, like it's Matrix and they're going to come and get you. These, which they're called thinking machines, which is really cool, they one day just up and decided to destroy technology, which is really interesting. So I guess that would be the robots deeming society not, I don't know, maybe they thought they shouldn't have it or shouldn't have access to it. But that is why in Dune 1 and Dune 2, they have technology, but it doesn't look super techy because they have nothing that's even close to AI because of this war. And I like the fact that I know that now because it makes so much of this show and the movies make more sense.
Agreed.
Because, like, it doesn't look like Star Trek or Star Wars. So, what's interesting is we get this flashback, and the robots look really cool. And then we get a voiceover of Valia Harkonnen, and she tells us that apparently there's like a hero from the war, and it's House Atreides. And she kind of leads us to believe that that story might not be accurate. What do you think?
Yeah, because when we see House Atreides in the movies, they're different. They seem very much loved and one. Well, besides the Emperor not liking them, and House Harkonnen. I feel like House Harkonnen and House Atreides just are big rivals in general.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that this house is good all the time. Just like with the Starks and the Greyjoys and the Targaryens, they're not always good.
That's a really good point because we're going to have a lot of comparisons with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. I don't think either of us could watch this and not have comparisons because it's very obvious that George was a fan of this world. because there's just a lot of similarities, and I love that. And the politics and the great houses, I think, are one of them. And these houses, I can't believe how old they are because you go 10,000 years in the future and it's still the same houses.
Well, and you know what's interesting? When they showed Valia, like the younger version of her, and the desolate world that her family was sent to, it was snowing, and it gave me the North Remembers.
Oh, very good. Yeah, it definitely does. Hopefully, we'll get more about it, but Valia tells us that her family didn't want to fight in the war, and so they were branded cowards and they got banished. I would like to know more about that, like the reasonings of why they didn't want to fight. I'm sure there's a good reason, and we'll probably be told at some point.
Well, especially because she says that the Atreides is the one that said it. So it's like, okay, well, why? Because she even says what holds more truth, history or prophecy? What she's saying about their history is correct. What they're saying is not correct. And I always say that history can be skewed and prophecy can be skewed. So
There's three sides. There's their side, her family side, and then probably the truth. We have Valia, who is a very strong willed young person. She joins the sisterhood with her sister, and they have their first mother superior. And I think is it Raquella? I
yeah,
think.
Raquella, yep.
She said she considers her true mother. And it is a group of women. They're called the Bene Gesserit, and we actually get to see inside. What would you call that? Like their school slash worship place.
I would say like a worship, yeah, or
Yeah,
where they train and stuff, yeah.
I don't think that's ever been shown before. I think that's a new thing. It's been talked about, but I don't think anybody's ever like shown in any of the movies like actually where they come from, but they're all women and they're there to train to act as truth sayers to the great houses, which to me and Andrea very much mimics the relationship between a maester and a house in Game of Thrones. Every
Yep.
great house has one, and it's set up in a very similar way, which I think is interesting. So I assume Mother Raquella has been has been training Valia on her own probably for quite some time. That's kind of what I inferred from that because, like, she's on her deathbed. Do you think Mother Raquella saw her as being, like, progressive instead of her daughter
Yeah.
and they were close? Yeah.
And that's why her daughter, Mother Dorothea, she doesn't like Valia at all. This happens after Mother Raquella dies. She says, "Sisterhood must strengthen, or it will fall." And Valia will be the one to see the burning of the hand that knows. She'll be the one that should lead, and they should
Hmm.
not vary from their opinions. Like you all have to like come together basically and form, and that's not happening.
No, there's two very obvious opposing sides. There's like an old school side, and those are the ones that are praying around the Mother Superior. And then there's Valia, which I would consider that the more like progressive and plotting side. And she tells them when she walks in, like, put your books away, your prayers aren't going to do anything. And I was like, oh, that's when I knew, like, okay, they're very different.
Yeah, and
Very.
if they split, it would weaken them. It's seen as weak if they split on opinions. So Valia being the stronger one and her group being the stronger one, they don't look weak to me, but the others do.
Agreed. And I think Valia takes that as not so much as I need to try to get the other group to agree with me. I think she takes that as, well, I'll just make it one group.
Yes.
She's pretty strong willed.
So Mother Dorothea wants to end the breeding, which because they're doing breeding to make somebody that they can control because
Hmm.
the houses are powerful, but they use violence and it's just they don't like how they're doing it, so they want to put somebody of their own on the throne, and they're breeding
Hmm.
people specifically, and Mother Dorothea thinks it's an abomination, and she
Yep.
says we're playing God, so she wants to end it. I don't know exactly what her plan was to end it, but Valia stops her and uses the voice on her. And I thought that was really cool because she's just like, you're not going to do this. And she makes her, she's like, I wanted to show you this new gift. She says the voice is a new gift that she learned, and she wanted to teach it to her if she bends, but basically bend the knee to her.
Yeah.
um, but she won't. So she tells her to take out the dagger that she had and put it through her throat.
Yeah, it's crazy. Dorothea gets like a chip. And what I assume is that that chip has the outline of the plans of all the different marriage alliances and children that they have somehow come up with. I know that chip's important because she looks at Dorothea's hand when she's holding it, and the voice is really creepy and Dune. It's really cool. Like if you hear the voice, you have to do what that person says. You just have to. Like it's really neat and it sounds creepy, which that is awesome too. And she just tells her, "Yeah, you're gonna cut yourself." And so Dorothea is like, "Okay," stabs herself in the throat. And then Valia is very quick to walk up and grab that like microchip or whatever it was before the people come up. But like,
Yeah,
what an easy way to get rid of people because you
it
could be across the room.
it is a really interesting way to do it, but I'm curious what Mother Dorothea was going to do with that. Like, I wonder what she would like. 'Cause that's a lot of time and effort to do this thing, and she was just going to try and end it. I don't know how she would have done it, but
I don't know. I think she thought if she destroyed the chip that they, I don't know, couldn't do their plan. But I mean, they probably had a backup. So who knows? Maybe Valia just didn't want her speaking out against her and causing problems, probably.
well, even though she says sisterhood above all, it's like okay,
Yeah, her sisterhood. That scene was really cool because that's the beginning of The Voice. And I don't know how it came about, but I know that we see it in the Dude movies and it's really neat. So it was really cool to see the origin of it, basically.
yeah.
30 years later, Valia is now Mother Superior of the Sisterhood, which is not surprising at all. And her sister, Tula, is her most trusted advisor. And Tula is Tula has more empathy than Valia. She's strong. I don't think she's any less strong. I just think she has more empathy. And the sisterhood is doing very well. And it's basically these young girls from all over the galaxy joining to be truth sayers. And I think it's probably, what do you think, like really high regarded if you get picked to go there, but you don't have to be from a great house to go there. Some
Yeah.
are from great houses, but some they've just found or they've just showed up there. Some are probably taking him based on ability, and then some are probably because they're from a great house.
In the very beginning of that, she's being asked about like because House Varric, House Kumali, and House Harkonnen want truth sayers, and House Harkonnen is asked 4 times, and she denied them a fourth time. She really doesn't like her house for some reason.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And I was surprised by that.
Yes, because that was very good acting from her, and I just sat there and I'm like, well, what happened?
So, all these houses, they want a truth sayer because they tell you what to do. Obviously, they're very perceptive, and it's probably a status symbol too.
Well, and then they talk about the princess in this because Constantine is her brother, half brother, and he comes in because the princess is going to be staying there and learning the ways. She's going to, I think, 10 years, they said.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, this girl has a hots for Constantine. She's like, I'm going to be her sister-in-law and her truthsayer. And I'm like, probably not. And then one of the what are they called? Acolytes?
I looked that up, Andrea, and I know that they're below an acolyte, but I couldn't find out what they are. I could only
Oh,
find acolyte and above. Or we call
safe
them a
or something.
student.
One of the students, her name is oh gosh, I forgot her name, but she says that basically Nez is the princess's name. She basically probably wants to be her own truthsayer, which that sounds about right.
Yeah. And I understand, like, they're frustrated because Nez is going to come in as an acolyte and they're all like looking at books and stuff. But I mean, she's a princess. And so we already know that she's a big deal already.
I think it's cool, to be honest.
It really is, and it just shows how much influence the Bene Gesserit already have. Because if the princess is going to be there for years studying, and you have all these great houses requesting truthsayers, like they're very quickly becoming something that is highly desired, and eventually these houses will feel like that they can't exist without them, basically.
Yeah.
Very maester. We find out that Inez is she's soon to marry, and it's an interesting proposal. He is 9 years old, which is not strange because any of the shows we watch, arranged marriages, that's always a thing because I mean it was an actual thing. But I like the fact that she's fine with him being a 9-year old because she knows she'll have about 10 years where she can do what she wants. And I was like, look at her go. Good for
But
her.
I like it also because I believe she's very much involved in this wedding proposal too, not just her dad. So I like that.
I agree.
The wedding present offered from House Atreides, who that's what she's marrying into. They built a new fleet for them, but they're supposed to be like really big motherships, and dust storms and Fremen won't be an issue with them.
Which means basically that Arrakis is a shit show. Her dowry is an insane fleet of ships because the Duke is having nothing but problems on Arrakis. And to the point, I would say without those ships, he would probably lose the planet. It seems pretty dire.
Yeah, basically. And this is a very lucrative marriage, it sounds like. And then but the Racheses give me Lannister vibes, especially him.
I agree. And House Carino, you just get kind of a skeevy vibe, like a new money vibe, is what
Yeah.
they give off. He's just not super polished and he kind of sounds like a salesman. And then it's like new money, old money is what it looks like in their conversation. And you see, though, it's really interesting because you have two truth sayers, one for each house, and as they're talking about this marriage alliance and how it needs to happen, you see the two truth sayers doing the hand signals, talking to each other, and you realize like these two men who are worth who knows how much these houses, and they have these truth sayers they take everywhere and tell everything to you, but the truth sayers have their own agenda and they have no idea, not a clue. I think that's really cool.
Oh yeah.
You just realize, like, wow, all the houses are being manipulated and they don't have a freaking clue. Andrew, when I tell you I got excited as soon as he showed up, I've got to say this and I have got to give you props. Okay, so Andrea has this thing, it's really cool. If she has a favorite actor, She knows how they walk, how they talk. She knows Matt Smith's hands. She knows who else is there. There's like a handful of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize this, but as soon as Desmond showed up, I knew his walk, and I said, "That's Ragnar. There he is. There he is." Because I knew his walk, and I was like, "I got to tell Andrea that." I was so excited. Travis Fimmel is such a good actor, and I have not seen him in anything since Vikings, and I was not disappointed. He had a great entrance.
I even wrote right here, I was like, Desmond Hart, what a whirlwind of a character, because he like comes in and you're, you know, he's from Arrakis. He's a soldier. He's been there 12 tours, which I was like, that's a lot of tours.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in and he survived an attack, I guess, that he should have not survived.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, that's interesting. Now I'm hooked, because why did you survive, and how?
Yeah, because Kasha tells the Duke, like, you have somebody here, and he's kind of like, hey, I'm trying to plan for a wedding and all this, and she's like, it's Desmond. And he's just like, what? What? Because apparently there was this huge attack, and everyone believed that the whole group was dead, and then Desmond just walks in, and to me, he gives automatically, like right out the gate, a bit of like, I'm a little unhinged. Like you get that like right from the beginning with him, which I love. Like it's just something about the way he holds his head. I don't know what it is, but
Well,
he's intelligent, and then he gives off a touch of crazy. It's almost like old school Jack Nicholson. You know? Like, it doesn't matter what part he plays, you know there's a little bit of crazy in there. So the Duke
yes.
thinks that the Fremen attacked the whole, what we call that, just army. Desmond tells him that they were rebel insurgents from the other houses. Dun dun
Yep.
dun.
And they stole the spice.
Well, they thought they left no survivors, and they wanted the Duke to think it was the Fremen. And so then your mind starts like kind of turning and going, wait a minute. If these were insurgents from the other houses and the Duke didn't even know, I feel like that's the Bene Gesserit weakening the Duke even further so that the marriage will occur.
Well, Kasha's like, well, what he's saying is true, or what he believes is true, which I thought was interesting. And then he's being invited to the wedding proposal ceremony, and when they leave, the look he gives Kasha, Desmond, my God, I was just like, this is unhinged. This look.
Oh, yeah, he does Unhinged in a great way. He gave her a look that puzzled me. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
He doesn't
Something's
like
going
Bennett.
on. No, hell no. And he is not one you would want to get that look from.
This is the start of how I say he's got very expressive eyes, and that his eyes just pretty much won the entire episode for me, just how he acts with his eyes.
You appreciate somebody that can act without words. He can do that. He did it a lot in Vikings, and he's already doing it here. It's just a talent that I didn't even fully recognize until Andrea pointed it out to me several times. And now I appreciate it because there's several scenes in House of the Dragon. I mean, hell, season two of House of the Dragon, Rhaenyra barely says anything, but Emma acts the hell out of those scenes. So I appreciate that a lot more now. And he does that very well.
Kasha has that vision, and then she tells Nez that she's leaving. She needs to go check on something.
Yeah, that
Um,
vision confused me actually. I was
well,
like, what the hell?
yeah, I don't know why Nez is saying you did this, and then you see the blue eyes in the sky, just like the other one. But you know what's interesting? She tells Nez that we found you all those years ago and you were held captive. How was she held captive? She's a daughter of very important person. I don't understand that. I guess we'll get more of that later.
Yeah, that was just kind of sad really quick. Like Kasha apparently was the one when they found her and she knew that she would be important. So yeah, I'd love to know that. I would assume we get told that. So something apparently happened. I don't know if there was like maybe like an overthrow or something,
Is she
but
not really the daughter of these people? I have a feeling they'd know that.
oh my God, what if?
That would make a lot of sense.
Okay, if that is true, like I'm gonna go on all social media and shout you out.
Follow your favorite podcasters on all social media at Southern Mother of Dragons and at the Princess of Dragonstone.
Her half brother has a claim to the throne, then, if she's not really blood related. Oh,
I kept wondering why they spent so much time on her half brother, and specifically they said he doesn't have a claim.
I bet he does. I bet he's the actual, like, I bet he actually does, and she doesn't. She's the one that doesn't because she was bred somewhere. Yeah.
Holy shit. Good job, Andrea. My
Woo.
God.
I just thought of this now because I'm like, huh.
Andrea and I have this thing where I swear we come up with the best ideas when we're talking on the phone. It's just, it's like yin and yang, and the brains just brain, and something brilliant comes out that never would have been if we hadn't been talking. I get the best ideas when I'm on the phone with Andrea. Just our brains work together very well and we get creative. It's just, it's like we're our own little Bene Gesserit of two, and we're just very, very smart when it's both of us. It's like Captain Planet, but like just two people can summon Captain Planet. It's fantastic. Mind blown, and now I understand why they spent so much time talking about the half brother.
Yes. That makes a
Damn.
lot of sense now.
Talk about the
Oh,
sword master real quick, because he's got that jawline you like.
he does have a jawline, and the sword master. We do find out at the in this episode that he's an Atreides, which I think I'm going to focus a lot on that because of what Valia says in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they had a very hot little like training session in the beginning of the episode. It was
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm not just sweating hot, but like actual hot. He moves really well, and the way he talks is also really well done. And I think he's got great chemistry with Nez. Um,
Yeah, and he's the house sword master.
yes, so he's a great house, but he's a sword master, and but her mom seems to really like him because she was shocked that she doesn't like the whole idea with the 9-year-old. And plus that house Richezes is kind of really annoying anyway, so I kind of get her feeling. Um, but
Yeah.
uh, but I think she wanted her to marry the sword master.
Yeah, I get that vibe too. The Duke's wife has no influence anymore, and we're pretty much given enough information to gather that Kasha has made her less important over time to where she doesn't really have a voice anymore. Like she's just the wife, but she does have a fantastic outfit.
She does, and yeah, so then when we see the wedding party, her outfit's great. Nez's outfit, she wears like a red dress, very pretty. We get to see Pruitt, who is the kid that she's gonna marry, and he's kind of
Mm.
a
Just say he's a little shit.
he's a little shit, yeah.
It's okay. We're meant to think he's a little shit because he shows up and he's kind of got a look on his face, and we already know his dad is annoying.
Yeah, it gives me Jason Lannister vibes. I don't like Jason Lannister. If you know, you know. Um,
Oh, that is spot on, ma'am. It's Jason Lannister in another font.
yes, Jason Lannister in another font.
Oh, that's
You look up
funny.
Jason Lannister, and that's your wish version.
Wish Jason, it's Space Jason Lannister.
Yeah.
Oh God. All right, so he's got his son Pruitt, which fits him, and he's kind of like a doughy kid. Like you can tell we're meant to see that he's spoiled and probably hasn't had to do much. and he is very arrogant during the ceremony, which is so cringe.
I mean, she tries to get to know him a little bit, and he's just like, we don't have to talk, we don't have to speak. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like she's just trying to be polite and talk to him, and he's like, "We don't have to speak. This is just a
And
formality." And it's like, "Damn, dude."
I don't know exactly why they have to share the fruit. It's some kind of interesting ceremony, but I don't. It's what's creepier about the fruit thing is that everybody's watching them do it like really closely, and I'm like, ugh, I wouldn't like that.
All right, I have a little nerdy side note you might like.
What's that?
So it looked like a pomegranate or whatever their version is. And a pomegranate's just filled with seeds.
Yeah.
And people would consume pomegranate seeds for fertility. And so I derived from that the ceremony is probably like that's to say it will be a fruitful union.
Wish Jason
Yeah.
Lannister said, "Here's my son to fill her wombs," basically, is what he said. So I'm assuming that makes sense now.
So I would assume that is a space pomegranate.
Well, that space pomegranate in the vision that Kasha had worms in it. So I don't know if that's if that vision is trying to tell her, hey, this is not a good idea.
Yeah, it's definitely a vision of this wedding should not happen.
Well,
definitely.
It's definitely not going to happen, so it's fine.
I think Pruitt is... He kind of looks like Tom and he acts like Joffrey.
Oh, yes.
So, again, Nez is trying to be nice, and she sees that he keeps, like, playing with something in his pocket. And I thought it would be, like, a little animal. I figured it'd be, like, some little squirrel or something. And she's like, hey, what is that? What is that? And he's like, no. And then he takes it out of his hand, and it gets away very quickly. It's like a robot lizard. Not good at all, because all of that's been outlawed. All of it. And everybody freaks out.
Especially Natalia. Oh, God, she gets so pissed. I get it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is something you should not have. That is technology that has been banned. That people were afraid because, I mean, they just got out of a war where the thinking machines rose up against them, and this spoiled little thing comes out with his own AI lizard, and it runs around, terrifies everybody, and who catches it and kills it?
Desmond, which is fitting.
That's so on brand. I mean, he just stabs it.
What do you think Natalia would have done to the Pruitt if Nez didn't move from trying to protect him?
Jerk a knot in his ass. Probably slapped him. She looked like she'd slap him, honestly.
She looks like somebody that wouldn't mind slapping a little kid like that because he's
Hell
annoying.
no. I think she would slap him because of the embarrassment he would put on the family, more so even than having the technology. Like, you made this wedding a mockery and you brought something like that into my house, even more so than, oh my God, you're not even supposed to have that. Because I think appearances are a lot for her. I mean, they're a huge house. They own Arrakis. But yeah, I think she would have, she would have slapped the kid. Yeah.
So his dad, Jason Lannister, was basically like, it's no big deal, and then Nez's dad comes out and Natalia's like, what are we going to do about this? And he's just like, we're not going to do anything, basically. So you felt it made him look weak. He did look weak.
He looked weak. That thing was illegal. He should have made a big deal about it and said, but we'll just move on. But he caves real quick, and we know it's because he's been basically, his power's been deconstructed over time, and he knows the wedding has to go through. He has no other option. He needs the ships, so he lets it go. And you can tell everybody's kind of like,
Yeah, basically. But I like what Nez says to Pruitt. She says, you pull something like that, I'll stab you myself, you little shit.
She does not have a problem saying what she thinks. So that's actually really good. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen, but anybody that would be married to him, God, I can only imagine. After the party, then they decide to go out and party.
Yeah, they're doing spice, it looks like.
Yeah, spice is very interesting. It's got like, I don't know how many different uses, but apparently it's a stimulant and they go out. I would say it's like what, bachelorette night, I guess.
Basically, I'm curious about her brother's sexuality, but hers is pretty obvious.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems like he's very much loved by the women, but that's fine if he's into, well, maybe he's into both. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't really
Yeah.
know much about him yet. They didn't show him as much as I would like, because I think he's interesting too, but we'll see. But see, when they go to this party, or whatever, the bar, not party, bar, Atreides is there too. His name is
Yeah.
Kieran. Kieran is there. And, which I always automatically like a character named Kieran, so I'm already like curious about him. And so she meets him there and takes him behind the bar, or somewhere quiet. And before that, the bartender is asking them if everything's okay, and she's just like, yeah, everything's fine. But she still watches them, and he looks at her, and then she looks at him, and then they disappear. And I don't understand why they had that look.
I don't understand it either. I don't. But you're right. They have a weird moment with the bartender, and it's not really explained.
I'm wondering if they do this a lot, and the bartender is just catching on to it, or
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
because they end up, having sex in this episode, and I guarantee that's not the first time they've done that. So,
The bartender, that's probably whose room they're in.
oh,
See, I told you we make sense together. That's probably it because Nez and Kieran hook up in a room. What room would it be? I bet it's the bartender's room, and he probably sets it up because we didn't know he would be there. And yeah, no, they've had sex before. That wasn't the first time.
oh. So what did you think about the scene with Desmond and Nez's dad?
Man, okay, that's a lot to unpack. So, the Duke is a troubled man. He looks worn out every scene. He looks like he's carrying Arrakis on his shoulders. He just does. I mean, has he smiled one time? I don't think so. So he's by himself in deep thought, which is a lot of the time. He's got a lot going on. And Desmond comes up and they have a conversation and it gets religious. The Duke is not a religious man, but God, the acting from Desmond was so incredible. He basically says that he shouldn't be alive. He thought he was dead. And the next thing he knew, he was digging his way up from the sand. And he starts talking about the gods. And this gets the Duke's attention because it's astounding that Desmond's alive. Everyone thought he was dead. And I thought it was really cool. You could tell that Desmond is trying to teach faith to the Duke, trying to open his eyes a bit with his story. And apparently, the Duke thought it was a good enough story. He's definitely intrigued.
Yeah, he's intrigued. He said, "I'd be a believer if you could help me find a way to stop this wedding because he feels like this wedding is wrong."
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, "Oh, okay, this is gonna be bad."
Mm-hmm. His hands are tied, basically.
And before this, Desmond says, "We were too quick to discard machines. And why are the great houses only allowed to profit spice?" He's saying this is what people are saying. And then he's like, oh wait, you don't know? I thought the witches knew everything. I thought they told you everything. So clearly he has an issue with the witches. And then now that he's having issues with this wedding, he's obviously going to help him end this wedding.
Oh yeah, Desmond's been there for what, a day, and he's already got his fingers in different pies, and he's trying to talk to the Duke, and he's learning all this stuff, and like he just hit the ground running basically, and he's sowing the seed of doubt about the Bene Gesserit in the Duke's brain, and he did
And
because he wants the Duke to know that they're not telling him everything.
yeah, this scene was major on the eye acting for him, and the way that he's just like, oh, I thought the witches told you everything. Like, oh, okay, like.
And the Duke is eating it up with a spoon, and he's so fascinated with it. He, what would you call that? Just like I guess it's just a chip. I guess he has something that he puts in a table, and it shows the scene of when Desmond was supposed to die. And what did you think about that?
Well, he literally just like bent his knees and talked to the worm, tried to talk. I wish
Yeah.
we could hear what he was saying to the worm, but I don't know why. Maybe because the Fremen, he's around the Fremen a lot, so maybe he got it from that. But yeah, so I thought it was interesting. It was a really good scene, and seeing him get eaten up by the worm was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the Duke is like astounded because you see Desmond kind of like clawing his way out, which he
Yeah.
said, and you're like, okay. But the worms come in. This thing is massive. This thing is huge. And he's just like on his knees, arms open, accepting death. And you don't see any way he could be alive, but he's alive. And so I think that is going to back up the spirituality that Desmond was kind of talking him into. That he has proof. So I just want to know how the hell he got out of the worm. I know we'll know, but Desmond is a very cool character.
The little annoying kid is with his little toy machine.
Yeah.
And he's just being a kid with it, right? Like he's like, it's okay, I'm here. Like he's trying to take care of the machine, and then Desmond comes out and talks to him, which I knew something was going to happen because I was like, oh great.
Oh yeah, because the kid comes out, he's all by himself. There's nobody around. They're just in a place where it has intersecting like hallways, and they're totally alone. And just the way Desmond just walks up to the kid real casual, I was like, oh man, here we go. Something's going on. I thought he was going to give the kid a hard time about having the damn lizard again.
He talks about there's war, and the kid's like, there's no war, and there's a war hidden in plain sight. We are being controlled. And Desmond has a great power. He talks about having a great power, and to win a war requires sacrifice.
Yeah, and he tells him that his sacrifice won't be in vain. And I was like, oh. And then immediately Pruitt starts burning. His skin starts burning him. Desmond has like a couple fingers like on his temple. And Andrew, you got to talk about how complicated that scene was and how he did that.
It's pyrokinetics basically is what he's doing, and it's part of telekinesis. But I don't know how, because I don't think there is pyrokinetics in this story anywhere that I've heard of. But I might look into that more. But it's different. It's I don't know where he's getting this from, because they've never shown this before. But it was hard on him too. It looked like he didn't want to do it, but he has to.
Yep.
So again, very good acting on just not saying anything, because this kid is burning alive and it's horrible. It's horrible to watch. I didn't expect that, because like somebody said on Threads, that House of Dragons season 2 episode 1, they kill a child. They don't show it, but you can hear it. This one, you see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very curious I don't know why they had us show it. They could have just, had us hear it, but it's important to see his face. It's important to see what he's doing to this kid because it's connected in some way to Kasha too.
We get a clear sign that Desmond is doing what he needs to do, but he doesn't like harming that kid because he looks pained.
Yes.
And that is so complicated, and he did that so well. I didn't fully understand why Kasha is burning the same time Pruitt is, because she's not the truth sayer for their house.
No.
The only guess I have is that she burned because she's the one that arranged the marriage. That's all I got.
That makes sense. But then because I'm sure it wasn't like her idea. I'm sure it was Valia's idea. So wouldn't Valia be harmed too? Like, that's what I don't understand.
I don't know why, but Kasha burned the same way that Pruitt did. It's like they burned from the inside out and they're gone.
And they didn't see this coming. That the truthsayers, the witches, they didn't see this coming.
They did not.
Because that little look that he shared with her?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's connected in some way because he really doesn't like witches. And it would make her, I don't know. This is going to cause a lot of issues though. So
you know what? I bet it is that. He saw her there. So I bet that's why it happened. We got to learn more about that.
He's got some telekinetic powers. So it's yeah. I don't know. A lot. They're always different in every story. So this might be heavier than what we think.
Probably. And they're just watching her burn like helplessly, that there's nothing they can do. And then Valia whispers, "I see, Mother, I see." I'm not quite sure what I think that means.
Well, the Mother Superior before her said that she's the burning hand that will know. So does the burning hand mean that she'll know? I don't understand what that means.
I guess that's the burning truth she was supposed to see.
Very well done episode. A lot of questions, which is good. You want to have questions.
Yes.
And Desmond is definitely something we need to know because a lot of people say he might be the part of the prophecy that obviously that Paul is part of. Not necessarily like directly linked to Paul, but just parts of it. Or it could be desert power. But I think that's more than desert power.
Yeah, that's more than desert power. I don't know how it happened, but he's really powerful.
And it's kind of freaky. So
yeah. And he was apparently chosen to do that, but he also volunteered, and it has something to do with a worm. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm giving this bad boy 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, I gave it a 10.
I wanted good acting, good story. I want politics, but I also want some creepy, spooky magic. I really, really think they did a great job. They spared no expense. They hired the right people. The CGI was not overdone, even though this is, sci-fi. It makes you way more invested when it feels real. Yeah, I really liked it. I think they did a good job.
Yes.
As always, it's Amanda here to say thank you to all of our listeners and to ask that if you liked this week's episode, leave us an honest rating. And if you'd like to continue the discussion, please feel free to comment on our post over at our Girls Nerd Out podcast account on Instagram. If you're interested in buying any of our merch to support the podcast and so that we can continue to release weekly episodes, then check it out over at girlsnerdoutpodcast.com. Our podcast logo was designed by Chairman Bilal over on Fiverr. Our podcast merch was put together by me, myself, and I at Southern Mother of Dragons on all social media. If you're interested in my personal merch, check it out at southernmotherofdragons.com. And the designs for that merch were put together by Ryuchi Studios on Etsy after an in-depth back and forth discussion with me to find the perfect merch for me and my loyal supporters. The music playing while I tell you about all the ways you can support us and the production of the podcast is Kawaii Girl by Pumpkin Pie. Thanks for listening.
Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you just listened to
Girls Nerd Out.